Who is the number 3 receiver in Green Bay? And what do you need to do with him in Dynasty? Where will the defending champs go for their lead running back? And when should you draft him? Plus, how much do you need to pump the brakes on a stud incoming rookie? And why? And joining the program this week are the co-owners of the 2016 Footballguys Players Championship third-place team, Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler. They'll tell us what they did different in 2016 than in previous years, why they had 2 tight ends at the end of round 4, plus much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Bunches and bunches, punches thrown into your frontlets, oodles and noodles, bang bullets that suckers noodles. Last album voodoo, prove that we fucking brutal. I'm talking crazy, had passed the clock is cuckoo. You rappers doodle, baby, just say you boo-boo. I'm talking doodle, man.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. with your hosts, Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
We run a brand with a structure for number one commitment. It's all a joke between mom contractions and coffins fitted. So we disappear when
Thank you very much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, better known as the Dizzle, also even better known than that as Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, what team will give Pierre Garçon his highest fantasy value? How you can make your FFPC team dominant without consistent wideout production, and what kinds of decisions should you be making with your dynasty teams when rumors hit the Twitterverse? Plus, Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler drop in to talk about their meteoric rise up the 2016 FPC leaderboard to finish in third place, as well as giving a couple of their early sleepers for 2017 FFPC leagues. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak this evening. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you want to give us a call, chime in, talk with us, give us a call at 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for me, for Dave, for Fred, for Tom, for Rob, for Bryce, for anyone, now's the time to send them. We'll get to all those chat room questions, tweets, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment in the latter half of the show. It is Valentine's Day weekend. Happy early Valentine's Day to you, Dave. Do you have big plans for Tuesday with the wife?
No, not at all, actually. We already have mutually agreed that we made a big enough purchase that we're not going the whole celebration route.
Ah, yes. So
we show our love the other 364.
So you finally got that Vietnamese adoption process.
Yep.
Very, very exciting.
17-year-old. He's coming in.
How is Feng Shui? Feng Shui, whatever it is. It's totally racist to start off the show. Hey, how was dinner tonight?
It was mediocre.
Mediocre? Mine was fantastic.
Where did you
El Jarapeo. You didn't see my Swarm check-in?
I have you blocked on Swarm.
Oh, you're so terrible. You checked in there, you took a picture of the happy hour thing, and I checked in. I went to the Greenville one. I didn't go to the Appleton one.
I'm sure our listeners really are fascinated.
No, I'm telling you that. Yeah. But I took a picture, but they didn't have. You had $1.50 pints of Miller Lite, and I asked for that at my El Jarapeo. They didn't have that. So then
That's funny. I wasn't even really paying attention.
Yeah, so I mimic. I said I chose the Beta El Jarapeo location.
I'm sorry I didn't see it.
What did you eat?
I don't know, seafood enchiladas.
I almost got that. I got the molcajete. It was fantastic.
You always get that.
I don't always get it, but tonight I did. It was very, very good.
Now that no one's listening.
All right, now that no one's listening, let's get to some promotion. The guests we had on last week, Peter Overzet and Pat Corain, their Fantasyland podcast dropped on Tuesday morning.
Much better than this show. It
was fantastic, very well put together. It was all about the high-stakes sort of industry, as it were, but it really centered on the FFPC live events in Las Vegas at the Westgate Resort Did you happen to listen to it? Did you get a chance to listen to it? Not yet?
I didn't have a chance yet. I was kind of busy.
Very good. Great stuff in there. Good.
I want to hear all the interviews.
Oh, there's a ton of FFPC player interviews. Alex was interviewed in there.
How long was the podcast?
Like a half hour. Maybe, I want to say like 37 minutes, somewhere around there.
Why do they edit it down so much? They probably had like 3 hours.
They're, as they said on the show last week, there's going to be at least one other FFPC-centric episode based on the audio they got, and potentially a third. We'll have to see about that.
Okay.
But it's very good. Alex Kaganowski had a couple of sound bites. There's a couple of things from me in there, as well as really the shining thing for me was the Lance Turbis interviews. And, I don't want to deride any of the player interviews because they're all great. Just fantastic stuff. So check that out at rotoviz.com/fantasyland. You can also check it out on the iTunes as well. Just search Fantasyland. It's episode 10. Do we have an update on when 2017 FFPC satellite leagues are launching? Are we still hoping for not next week, but the week after?
Yeah, I would hope it's going to be end of next week.
Stay tuned to the FFPC e-newsletter because yours truly will have updates in there.
And they have to award the prizes for the playoff challenge that's happening this weekend. Now that stats have gone final, they have to flip to the 2017 year. They have to do a few stat changes, and not stats. It's just a few housekeeping type items.
Right.
And then they might be uploading the 2017.
Ty Montgomery switching to running back.
Yes, that'll be a tough one.
Yes.
2017 rookies. I sent them a big list of rookies. That'll be more for Dynasty, but they might do that right away, and then we'll get launched.
And for those of you who are not familiar with this show, maybe it's one of the first times you're tuning in. We do this show year round, and I can tell you the next 3 months are going to be very Dynasty heavy as far as content goes. And there's actually orphan teams that you can own with the FFPC at myffpc.com. Check out the message boards there. There's a thread, a couple of threads actually, of Dynasty teams anywhere from $250 all the way up to $2,500 available right now. So if you want to jump in, make a few trades, the only format the FFPC allows with trading, that's Dynasty. Of course, it is the best version of fantasy football, and we encourage you to check out those orphans. Make Dave an offer at dave@myffpc.com. Thank you to RotoWorld. Thank you to Rob, our producer, and our audio engineer, Bryce, who had nothing to do with tonight's rundown, but I feel like I should give him a shout-out at the top of every show. This is the actual fantasy football content we're going to get to right now, according to Jason Lockenfora of CBS Sports. Several league sources think that the Eagles will be making a run at impending free agent Alshon Jeffrey. If you remember the Eagles receivers, probably not, because they weren't very memorable last year. There's Jordan Matthews, there's Dorial Green-Beckham, not a whole lot else besides that. Nelson Aguilar. Jeffrey's easily the best wideout on the market this year. Deshaun Jackson has also been rumored to be going to the Eagles, where, of course, he played for 6 seasons. If the 49ers decide to cut bait with Torrey Smith, because let's face it, he ain't doing much in Frisco right now, he could be a possibility for the Eagles as well. Carson Wentz is the quarterback in charge. He just needs more weapons on the outside, Dave. Alshon Jeffrey would be quite the weapon to have in Philly. Does his dynasty value, or even his redraft value, if we want to look at it from that standpoint, change based on him going to either Chicago or Philly? To me, it's roughly the same, maybe even a little bit better if he ends up in Philly.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's about the same. He's going to get a lot of targets wherever he goes. He stays in Chicago. He's going to be the definite number one receiver. Zach Miller will probably get a few extra targets this year. Philadelphia, just because of the change, it's tough to really upgrade him because you just don't know how he's going to do there. I mean, there's that uncertainty. I would hesitate to upgrade him, really.
And I'll tell you a couple other things, reasons why I wouldn't be upgrading him too much. Remember, he had the 4-game suspension for PEDs last year. He's been no stranger to the trainer's table as well.
Hurt.
There's a tendency to sort of overrate or get excited about a guy when he switches teams to potentially a better situation. And we kind of push those negative aspects of the player to the back of our minds, and we end up getting a little too excited and maybe overdrafting him, overpaying for him in trades or what have you. So that's the other reason to be very, very careful with Alshon Jeffrey.
And all that stuff too. Everyone's talking about him.
Right. And this is not a very exciting free agent receiver class. So again, we could be overrating him based on that as well.
Deshaun Jackson's terrible. Torrey Smith sucks too. Those guys they shouldn't even be playing anymore. They're like the 30, 40. I mean, as far as fantasy goes, they're like the 30, 40 catch guys. Deshaun Jackson, I'm so sick of him.
Mint Montana is a long-time listener to the show, and I really wish that when he would post in the chat room, he wouldn't be so ambiguous as to what he believes about a player. He chimes in, I wouldn't give Jeffrey a nickel. Dude's a bum.
There you go.
Don't know what that means. I mean, man, I don't think he likes him, but I could be wrong. Albert Breer from Monday Morning Quarterback, or mmqb.com, spoke with a scout, the independent scout that was assigned to Oklahoma. And that scout told Albert Breer that Joe Mixon is actually well liked by people at Oklahoma University. Remember, Joe Mixon was caught on video hitting a girl in the face when he was 18 years old. This happened, 3 years ago now? 3 or 4 years ago. The scouts suggest that that incident is a one-time mistake, something that Mixon has learned from. And then Albert Breer asked him about, what's the right team? Who's the type of team that Mixon can be successful on? And he said, it needs to be the right market, a team that can handle the onslaught, the right PR staff, because you'll have to weather the storm. Here's the interesting part. This has to do with your boy, Tyreek Hill. He says, but the guy the Chiefs drafted, Joe Mixon, isn't half the douchebag that guy was. You have to search to find people that don't like him. Maybe the parking lot attendant, everyone there loves him, and I believe them. Joe Mixon, maybe this was an isolated incident. The fact is, there is going to be a PR flurry that teams will be able to have to weather in order to sign and draft Joe Mixon. Now, as far as a dynasty standpoint goes, Dave, I feel like, and perhaps this is stating the obvious, I feel that Mixon is going to be drafted lower than he should. A lot of people think if he wouldn't have had this incident, even if it wasn't caught on video, he would have been a first-round pick. When you look at how rookie dynasty drafts are going to go, he's probably not going to be drafted as the starting running back, into a situation where he'd be the starting running back. He's probably going to be a complementary piece, but he could be the most talented piece of that backfield. So when you look at it, he actually might be drafted much, much higher in rookie drafts compared to where he's going to be drafted in the NFL draft in relation to how other running backs have fared in that situation before. He's the type of guy, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago on the show, that could actually sneak into the mid to late first round of FFPC rookie drafts based on his talent, because, frankly, we as fantasy owners don't have to weather the PR storm. We just have to know how he's going to be used in the NFL, and any team that drafts him obviously has big plans for him.
No, I totally agree with you. That's a great analysis. I mean, you look at, like, Jay Ajayi, he was a guy who fell. He was super highly rated by a lot of the draft nicks, and he fell just because of the knee concern, but he still got drafted really high in rookie drafts.
Right.
Isaiah Crowell was the other player that had these character concerns. Was he drafted in the 7th round, or was he an undrafted free agent? Either way.
He was an undrafted free agent.
Really late, but I mean,
UDFA.
He's he's been very productive his entire his career. I mean, he's not a pass catching guy, but I mean, he's always going to be pretty solid production.
Most recent example is the one that this scout references here, Tyreek Hill. That guy wasn't picked until the 5th round. What happened with him?
Yep.
Slow start. Didn't get into a whole lot of snaps. And he ended up, honestly, he wasn't used as much as his stats would dictate because of all the touchdowns that he got. But he was being used. And now he's going to be used more.
Didn't start using until the 8th, 9th.
Right. But the talent, my point is, the cream, as Tupac likes to say, the cream rose to the top. The talent, really took center stage. And then we, I don't want to say we forgot about what he did, but as fantasy owners, it became sort of irrelevant because of the production on the field. So, again, this could be the same thing that happens with Joe Mixon, too. I
mean, he wasn't invited to the Combine. I find that interesting.
But the NFL Combine made a rule that anybody with charges or they made some sort of rule that
at age 18. So, I saw it. I mean, it's really terrible.
Right.
I mean, it's. People are so immature at age 18. I mean, I'm not even that mature right now. I'm in my 40s. So, I mean, at that,
I was actually more mature at 18 than I am
at that age. She may have said something that got him mad, and they were arguing.
I don't want to get into it.
No, I know. I'm not saying it's okay.
Right.
Obviously, it's not okay, but things do happen, and people make stupid mistakes. And I do agree with Breer's assertion that if a lot of people from Oklahoma are saying he's a good guy, with the exception of this one mistake, that's believable to me.
Right. Yeah, and we'll see.
I would have no problem drafting Mixon.
We're going to get some more news on this when he starts interviewing with teams in the pre-draft process, because we're going to find out what he's saying to these teams, how he's coming off, and that's going to affect his stock as well.
Yep.
Rob Domofsky, ESPN Packers reporter, said today that this coming season could be a make-or-break year for Randall Cobb. If you remember, Randall Cobb back in 2014 had a 91, 1287, and 12 line. His numbers, not so great since then. He signed a 4-year, $40 million deal after that 2014 season. including the playoffs, Cobb has just 2 100-yard games in 2016. Davante Adams obviously outperformed him last year. He is due $8.6 million this year, and people might be saying that Cobb could be asked to take a pay cut. He turns 27 in August. As we look at the Packers receivers here, Dave, no question Jordy Nelson is number 1 on this team right now. Adams has to be number 2, given the output that he had, given the targets and the chances and the touches that he got over Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb's the number 3 receiver on this team, Dave. He's making a ton of money. If you own him in Dynasty, certainly you were hoping for bigger things, unless you just traded for him or something like that. What are you doing right now? Are you selling him for 70 cents, 75 cents on the dollar? Are you keeping him and hoping that he bounces back and has a big-time year so that he does not get cut? What are you doing? I don't know if you own Randall Cobb in any leagues right now, but if you do own him, or if you did own him, or maybe if you don't, would you be floating some trade offers out there to see what you could get?
I would probably be, even though his value is super low, I would definitely be doing that, trying to ditch him. Cut bait. I mean, I just don't think his value is going up at all. He's a slot receiver. He's not that great. Jordy was WR2. Davante Adams. I mean,
overall.
Davante Adams was WR number 9 last year.
Again, that's 12 touchdowns, so that had a big impact on that.
Still counts. I mean, those are still touchdowns. I know everyone's always like, regression to the mean. That's all kind of, to be honest, semi-bullshit.
Okay,
I'm going to swear, I'm going to say it. Because it's like, those touchdowns do count, and maybe he'll score 12 again next year, and maybe he'll score 17.
Right.
Those points count. Everything doesn't always regress to the mean.
All right. Do you own LeGarrette Blount in any leagues? Because I'd love to.
Yeah, so I mean, you can make one example. You had a ton of.
But I'm just saying, yes, I understand that counts. But
how come you never say regression to the upside then when these guys have little touchdowns?
Okay, so
you always bring up the bad side.
You cannot.
The guy scores a lot of touchdowns, and all of a sudden it's bad.
Right.
I hate players that score touchdowns in fantasy. It's the worst.
Okay. You cannot progress to the mean. You always regress to the mean, whether it's a positive or negative. So if let's use Randall Cobb as an example. If he had a bad season this year, which he did, chances are he will regress to the mean next year. Maybe better.
I don't know. Maybe his mean is WR number 75.
Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm betting it's not. But my point is with the touchdowns here. I mean, you say Davante Adams was the 9th best receiver, or the 9th.
The ninth most fantasy points.
Right, 9th most fantasy. I'm not disputing that. He had a fantastic year. My point is it's difficult for me to project Davante Adams scoring 12 touchdowns every season in his prime.
Well, the thing is,
what you can project is targets.
Well, what you can project for Aaron Rodgers is 40 to 45 touchdowns every year.
Well,
and he throws a lot of touchdowns. He in fact threw a lot of touchdowns to Randall Cobb. So even when Randall Cobb was productive, it was because he had a lot of touchdowns.
Well, now
maybe the quarterback throws a lot of touchdown passes, and the people that get all the targets get a lot of touchdown passes.
Right.
So who are the people that are getting the targets?
Okay. Well, now remember this too. If you want to bring up Aaron Rodgers in this, he had no running game this year. Now, if the Packers address that, Rodgers could regress to the mean next year as well. So, I mean, you could be looking at a guy who threw, 40 touchdowns this year. Maybe next season he only throws like 33 or 34. You know what I mean? Who knows?
I think that's an absurd little thing to say. Rodgers has been like a top 3 fantasy quarterback for his entire career.
That's fine. Bring up Aaron Rodgers. We have Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler coming up.
Fred Beyer of the jewelry company?
No, Fred Beyer. Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler, the third place Football Guys Players Championship teams coming up just a minute.
This after the interview.
But I want to get to Rodgers here. Go back and look at how many touchdowns he's thrown. The past however you want to do it, 4 or 5 years. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah.
No.
So
okay.
He threw 40.
Yes, thank you. I think we've covered through 40 last year. Okay, go ahead.
31, 38, then he was injured, 17, right. 39, 45, 28, 30, 28 before he kind of broke.
Does it have his average or no?
No.
Okay.
So it's
not like 33 or 34 is unheard of if he has a dominant running game.
Okay, so from 2011, 45, 39, injured, so 17,
right.
38, 31, and 40. So out of all those years, 1 year he threw less than 38 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, I'm just saying like 33 or 34 isn't out of the question.
It's almost out of the question. I mean, because when he's healthy, he's not throwing 33 or 34. That's
if you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers being healthy for 16 games next year, and the running game scuffles, which it seems to have, then yeah, he's probably going to be closer to 40 touchdowns. If Eddie Lacy comes back or Ty Montgomery has a big year, and maybe they combine for 12 or 13 touchdowns, he ain't throwing 40. It's just not going to happen. And I'll put 5 on that right now.
When you talk about the mean is the average, just so in case you didn't take
Yes,
statistics.
I'm aware of what it means.
The mean is the average of the touchdowns that he's been throwing. So if you take those, the mean is actually probably about 40. Now, let's get the guess on.
I'll tell you
you're unbelievable.
We're going to get to a break right now. I want you to figure this out. Figure out the mean.
I'm not going to count the injury year. Is that okay?
No, because maybe he was projected, or maybe he was on pace to score way less than that. Okay, take out the injury year and figure it out, and then we'll find out how insane 34 touchdowns is compared to
it's 34. Now you're going up
33 or 34, whatever. It's what I said. You're listening to Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. We're going to take a break, take a sip of water. Dave's going to crunch some numbers. Fred Beyer, Tom Winkler coming up right after this. The HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Valentine's Day weekend is here, and the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is here to bring the love back.
After that loving segment. All right.
My throat really was dry. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Before we bring on the guest, do you have the numbers crunched?
Okay, those 5 years, 38.6 is the average.
Okay, so 34 touchdowns with an awesome running game. I don't think that's crazy.
No, you're right. If they have an awesome running game, you might be right.
And you know what? You know my feelings on Eddie Lacy.
Oh, brother.
So, all right, let's bring in.
We've made up now.
Yes, let's bring in tonight's guest before things get really out of control here. After unsuccessful seasons in both 2014 and 2015, well, I shouldn't say unsuccessful because these guys did win money, but they did not win as much as they did in 2016.
Did they progress to the mean?
They regressed to the mean. They co-managed the team into third place in the 2016 FPC tournament, good enough for a $16,000 plus payday. Please welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Mr. Fred Beyer and Mr. Tom Winkler. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
We're still calming down after this serious Aaron Rodgers discussion we have. So
yeah, we want to get in on that action.
Well, let's do this right away. Okay, so talk about, you guys heard the discussion.
Have one of them go.
Give us your thoughts on this I don't know, on the Packers offense in general. We'll go with it however way you want to take it. Yes.
Ooh. Well, we had Rodgers on our team, and we enjoyed that. I'm going to have to side with Dave on the conversation here. I think Rodgers is good for closer to 40 than the 34 that you're talking about.
Okay, again, I don't want to have to...
I know you didn't say that for sure it's 34. You're saying it could happen if the running game is awesome.
Now, I'll tell you this. I would not, if you're going to say oh, Balky, you think he's going to get 34 touchdowns next year. No. Not what I'm saying at all, but I'm saying it's in the realm of my possibility. Dave can't even imagine Aaron Rodgers really throwing for that. See, that's a fantasy that exists. This is unicorns, other fake stuff.
No, that's the guest talk.
And Aaron Rodgers throwing 34 touchdowns. That's this is Dave.
Jesus, shut up. Okay, gentlemen, whichever one of you hasn't had a chance to speak yet, please.
No, let's get into it. We'll move on from the Aaron Rodgers discussion because I know you guys hate Aaron Rodgers.
Well, going back to the Aaron Rodgers discussion, when you look at the way the team has performed and played and the way McCarthy calls plays, I don't think there's any way in the world that it's 33 or under. Even when Lacy was healthy and performing, Aaron Rodgers was a top-notch quarterback.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. I don't think he throws, again, 33 and a half touchdowns next year.
Well, 2015 he threw 31. I'll give you that.
I could see it. 2015, that was a Jordy Nelson year when he was out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when he had no receiver.
Right, so there you go. Okay, let's get into this, guys. I want to...
All right, real conversation.
Yes, exactly. Okay, guys, when you're not playing fantasy football, tell us what you're doing for a living. Fred, go ahead and tell us first, and then Tom, chime in after that.
I'm an accountant and a financial advisor. And I'm a broker associate in real estate sales and purchases.
in Southwest Florida.
Financial advising and real estate, Dave, two of your favorite wheelhouses to hang out in. This is probably and they're both siding with you on the Rogers discussion. This is probably top 5 nights of your life right now.
These are smart individuals.
And you get to hang out with them and talk fantasy football.
Yeah,
This is wow. I can't. You're blushing. You're actually blushing. You're so happy.
I'm so excited. I mean, the stock market's up. I mean, things are going so great. Fred, congrats on being the second runners-up in the 2016 Football Guys Players Championship. By the way, do you guys know if the first and second place guys can't fulfill their duties? It's kind of like Miss America. Then you guys name the champs. You don't get any more money, though.
There's not any sort of sex tapes going on out there right now with Mike Kuzma. You know, like that.
Hey, we'll see what happens.
Come to light.
Yeah, if these guys, if they go and
no,
punch their
there's not.
girlfriend, like Joe Mixon, if they pull a Joe Mixon, you guys, you got a shot. We're elevating you.
Yeah.
So this is the first big cash for your FFPC career. What did you do differently in 2016 that you had not done in the prior 2 years?
Well, we haven't done anything differently. Every season we believe that we draft a quality team. It's just that this season we didn't get hit with the injuries that we have in the past. We do our work, we do our homework, we have our strategies. And it just so worked out this year that we didn't get hit with injuries.
Injuries obviously they play such a big role in who wins these giant tournaments, and honestly, avoiding those, picking the right players, getting your guys, if you will, Dave, is one of the key components in achieving greatness, which you guys definitely did this year. Tom, as we look, take a look back at the 2016 season that you guys had going into Week 14, you guys weren't even in the top 200 overall. When did you and Fred sort of realize that, hey, you guys, we have a shot at maybe winning this thing, or at least finishing near the top of the leaderboard? When did it become real for you?
Well, I guess the quick and easy answer to that one was after Bell put up 50 in Week 1. But, Fred and I had looked at our lineup, and we really liked our matchups going into that week. And we did feel that we could put up a big number, and we did.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, that was a huge key for
every year. Jamal Charles 1 year, Arlen Harris 1 year, Odell Beckham 1 year. It always seems like that there's some player that just comes out of nowhere, but has this massive fantasy performance, and
Charles with that 55 point.
Yeah, and then this year it was Le'Veon Bell putting up that huge total.
So actually, the next question we're going to talk. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We also felt confident about our team because we had a dissimilar team than a lot of the other teams in the league. And we knew if our guys performed, we'd be able to jump up substantially in the rankings.
That's really impressive, honestly. And having the difference makers that, where you're not having the guys that are 50% owned makes a big difference. But I'm going to go back to Le'Veon Bell. You guys took him at the 109 spot in this draft. And I'm going to tell you guys, there were teams that did well that took him in the third round.
Yeah.
So you guys actually took him a lot higher than some of the other people who lucked out, but you obviously did well with your other picks. So why was it okay for you not to have two of your first had to have 3 weeks of the year, Le'Veon Bell was not there. Why was that okay for you?
Well, we were at the number 9 spot. We had a couple guys on the radar, but when they were taken, we had talked about it. We felt Bell was a great selection. Especially with the opportunity to plan for the fact that he wasn't going to be there. We backed him up with Williams, who was fantastic for us the first several weeks. We were actually worried that he was going to be in a timeshare when Bell got back.
Tom, talking about this Le'Veon Bell decision that you guys made, knowing that he was going to be suspended or at least miss the first 3 games of the season, I think that you would probably agree that in certain – because everybody always wants to get off to these fast starts in the FPC and the FFPC main event, but I think that you'd agree that there's certain situations where talent and opportunity is so great that it trumps not having your first-round pick for those first 3 weeks. This was a decision that you guys made that we're like, we're going to build our team strong enough where we'll be able to survive those first 3 weeks, and then when he comes back in week 4, we're going to be dominant.
Absolutely. First of all, Bell had proved he could do this before. Here's a guy that misses 3 weeks, and he finishes at second in the league. No question, an impact player that we were happy to put on our team. You always want to start off good, but more importantly, you want to finish strong. Ask the champ. He knows that.
Yeah, that's totally true. Mike Kuzma finished off about as strong as you possibly can in Week 16. You guys, Fred, you took back-to-back tight ends in rounds 3 and 4, Greg Olsen in the 3rd, and Travis Kelce in the 4th round. Was that part of the plan, Fred, to grab those 2 elite tight ends early, or did this just represent a case of best player available? We can start these guys every single week as long as they're healthy and not on bye. What went into those decisions to grab Olsen and Kelce there?
This is my favorite question. We don't have a tried and true plan going into a draft. In other words, we adjust on the fly, and we take what the draft gives us. After the round 2 was over, we looked at each other, and we said, let's go monster, and that's code for us. We've used 3 tight ends in the past and have had some success. And so we utilized it here because we had the opportunity. And that's really what it comes down to. Whenever we enter a draft, 3 tight ends in this kind of format is always possible. And I'd like to say that the tight end position is a position that we really scrutinize very, very carefully every year.
So, Fred, we're going to go back to you about wide receivers, actually. Taking a look at your wide receivers after your draft and then after the season ended, you had a home run with Devontae Adams, wide receiver number 9, 12 touchdowns. That's easily going to happen again next year. But outside of Devontae Adams, you didn't have an elite stable of consistent guys. How did you guys make it work to finish in 3rd with wide receivers that some would consider to be kind of on the mediocre side?
Well, we had 3 tight ends that we were starting. So that meant that we had to start 2 wideouts. Now, we had Devontae Adams we were committed to. We picked up J.J. Nelson, Adam Thielen, and we felt comfortable with those guys. And they performed. And we started off with Travis Benjamin. So we would sort of disagree with you. We had some tight ends that would allow us to start those receivers, and those receivers we felt were good enough.
And when you think about, guys like J.J. Nelson and Adam Thielen, yes, by and large, they weren't like top 5 elite guys on the season, but they had a few top 5 elite games. In fact, Nelson and Thielen might have been even the number 1 overall receiver on a couple of different weeks this year, too. So if you pick your spots and start those guys, you can get elite production. Fred, you mentioned the 3 tight ends, Kelce, Olsen, and who was the 3rd guy you were consistently starting this year?
Cameron Brate.
And Brate was great. For sure this year. We have
great.
So much more.
And I want to say to you, out of respect for a team that we had a couple prior years ago, we were the guys that found Jimmy Graham in that first breakout year. And we had 3 tight ends that year, and we fell apart at the end. But the 3 tight ends are very attractive, and if we have the opportunity to utilize that, we will take it. But we don't go into any draft saying this is what we have or not do. We take what, is given to us.
And it certainly is a feather in your cap when you do the tight end analysis, when you have the scrutiny and the chops to know which guys are going to be performing the best. That is definitely an advantage, obviously. We have so much more to get to with you guys, Fred, Beyer, Tom, Winkler on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. When we come back, we're going to ask these guys about James White, how his Super Bowl performance is going to affect his draft stock next year. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, the HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. We have the third-place team in the Football Guys Players Championship on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. A couple of co-managers in Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler cashing more than $16,000 for their second runner-up prize this past year. The question I want to get to you guys here, and Tom, I'll pitch this to you. We're fresh off seeing a fantastic Super Bowl. It's still mossy in our minds, and we definitely really enjoyed it. But you could make the case that James White was really the Super Bowl MVP, given his performance, a Super Bowl record for receptions. It's really insane what a Badgers running back did on the grandest stage. It was awesome to see for us. Do we need to bump James White up our draft boards for next season, or are we ignoring his stats this past Sunday, as it truly was a small sample size in just one game? Tom, what are you guys at this point doing with James White for drafts coming this year?
I'd have to actually say absolutely not, and probably, unfortunately, ignore it. It's a great question for us. We actually picked LeGarrette Blount in the 10th round this year. We were extremely happy with his performance early on. It really helped us throughout the season. And actually, we just finished up a little sort of a Super Bowl tournament, and we actually selected James White and rode him to a top 10 finish. And Fred, actually, on his other team, likes James White and actually drafted him. The problem is that New England is a game planning team. Any one of those guys can go out there and have a great performance and then not play the next game. Blount had a great year with his touchdowns. White had a great Super Bowl. You'll have those guys that also say that Deion Lewis is better than both of them. It's basically good luck picking the right guy to have in the backfield on any given game. They're great players. It's just very tough to do.
Yeah, it's difficult to sort of know when those guys are going to have big games. I say this all the time, Dave. Patriots running backs make good late round draft experts picks, not necessarily great main event classic 20-round.
Those are great guys to cross off your draft.
Yeah, exactly. Let somebody else deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of what
Denver was for so many years.
Yes, it's a perfect example there. Guys, I'm going to toss a couple of listener emails that we got in for you. The first one I'll go ahead and lob to Fred here. It's actually a guy that Dave mentioned already. This is from Jason in Mankato, Minnesota. Hey, guys, are you guys believers in Jay Ajayi in 2017? He only caught 27 passes last year, and more than half his rushing yards came in 3 games. He also had 8 games with fewer than 50 yards. Congrats on all the cash. That's Jason in Mankato, Minnesota. Fred, Jay Ajayi this coming year, he's going to be drafted highly. Is he going to be drafted highly by you guys?
No. And the reason is the sample size is just way too small. When you say early, I will let somebody else make those projections and make the pick in the second or third or first rounds. But it won't be me.
Yeah, Ajayi is going to be a polarizing guy. And it won't even really matter because, there could be like 8 or 9 teams that are off Ajayi, but all it takes is one team or, 2 teams that draft him high or whoever it is, and he's off the board. I am with you on that one. Bill in Southfield, Michigan. Hi, Fred and Tom. Will the Bucs have a rookie wide receiver or rookie running back starting in week 1 or neither or both? Thanks for the email, Bill in Southfield, Michigan. Tom, I'll let you answer this one here. The Bucs are an up-and-coming offense. You have Jameis Winston quarterbacking. A team on the rise. Mike Evans is obviously the go-to number 1 receiver there. Cameron Brate, you guys know how good he can be. But when you look at the backfield, it sounds like Doug Martin won't be back, and they never really had a viable number 2 option opposite Evans this past year. Do you envision them going running back or receiver early, where we could see these guys starting right away, week 1, in either of those positions?
No, I don't. I think the Bucs hope so. It's a local team for us here. We're Floridian, so we're always rooting for the Bucs. But Mike Evans is a stud. and he's going to get, obviously, from Winston, he's most of the targets as it is. But I don't see someone coming in and making a major impact, right away on that team.
When you look at, the holes that are going to be there, the number one running back, the number two receiver, they're probably honestly more likely to fulfill those through free agency, given the running backs that'll be out there, and given that they've already been rumored to be looking at Deshaun Jackson. I mean, there's more possibilities out there for a veteran coming in and starting from week 1 on. Even if they do draft somebody in the second or third round, they'll be more than likely worked into the offense. Probably a veteran is going to be starting in those positions, right, Fred? When you look at that, I'll let you chime in on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you're looking at the fantasy implications of that whole situation, I'd like to know the commodity before I make a move, yay or nay.
We, normally Dave always asks this question, but I
can ask them both.
Do you want to do it?
I can. You know what? I'm going to try 2 in a row. Can I ask 2 in a row?
This whole Aaron Rodgers discussion has you brimming with confidence.
I feel like this is what, our fifth, sixth year?
Go to
I got 10 on Rodgers.
Yeah, baby.
That's so terrible.
2 straight questions.
Lose so much money on Aaron Rodgers.
All right. We'll start with Tom on this. Tom, we need you to give us a guy that you think will be an early round bust next year and a player that will end up having a big value as a late round sleeper 2017 drafts. So Tom will start, and then Fred will go next, but Fred cannot, just like Family Feud, we're going to give you the you cannot duplicate answers.
Yeah.
Well, you guys actually caught me on this one because you already brought him up with the question, or somebody did, because, again, they got Jay in the first round. And not that I have anything against Jay, but I don't see him performing at that level, and I just think there's going to be quite a few running backs that are going to surpass his numbers. If you want me to come up with another one, I'll be happy to do so if you'd like.
That's okay.
Because Mr. Dez Bryant's going to have to do something for me before he needs to be in that first round either.
All right, so Ajayi and Dez are your cold busts of the year.
Dez is interesting, too, because you have that offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott there. That could be where this team goes, and Dez just might not be the prolific playmaker with all those targets that he was under Tony Romo. Fred, your turn.
So he didn't give us.
I'm sorry, Tom, your sleeper.
Don't hijack my question.
You know what?
You already screwed my question.
All right, I apologize. Tom, go ahead.
Jeez.
Well, looking at what I've been seeing so far with a lot of these leagues and the tight ends dropping down, and we're obviously a big tight end team. I think I've been seeing Ladarius Green between 11 and 15 on the tight end scale there, and I think that's way out of line. I think he's going to be a big factor next year for Pittsburgh. And I'll also throw another receiver in there again. I'll stick with the Steelers. And they got Martavis Bryant at about 45 to 50 on the wide receiver rankings. And here's a guy that I think that if he's got his head on straight, and he'd be in the top 10.
So let's see, we got
some Ladarius Green love
and Martavis. So
and Martavis Bryant.
Different Bryant. Yeah. Martavis. All right, now we can move on.
Sorry, Fred, go ahead now.
I think the biggest disappointments in the first round of any draft are going to come at the wide receiver position, because when you draft a wide receiver in the first round, your expectations are high and the production has to be high. So I would say a player like Julio Jones or Antonio Brown might put up a disappointing season like Hopkins this year. In terms of an upside pick later, I would like C.J. Procise. I was on to him this year, but he didn't really do what I expected. But I'm expecting big things from him next year.
So Hopkins and Procise. Procise has been mentioned in one or two other shows.
I got to tell you, the train on the hype train on CJ Procise or the bandwagon. I guess they both left the station at the same time. Can't even see them. They're so far in the distance that they've gone a long way so far this year. And here's another member of that Procise bandwagon. It could totally legitimately be correct.
Could be. And, of course, the only Dynasty League I own Procise in is the one that has a mandated end date that just ended.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So sad. All right, guys. $16,500 is a nice chunk of change that you won for taking third. So, unfortunately, you have to split it with each other, I assume, or some sort of taxes involved. What are your plans with the money? Fred, we'll have you go first.
My boat's getting old, so I think I'll probably get a new one.
Nice. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. I really like that quite a bit. Tom, do you have
new boat?
Tom, do you have another an equally good way of spending your end of the cash?
Yeah, I'm going to put most of it towards next year's tab.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
the
best answer.
That's dear to our hearts here at the money-hungry, grubbing FFPC.
the FFPC overlords just love that. Hearing that, that's fantastic. Well, listen, I'm glad you guys had a great experience in 2016. You came very, very close to winning it. Maybe 2017 will be your year, especially if you're putting a lot of that money towards it. You'll definitely have a lot of chances of doing it.
Draft from the boat this year.
That'd be great.
Use the Wi-Fi on the boat.
Take pictures. Tweet it to us at FFPC. We'd love to see it. And listen, congrats on all the success. Best of luck in 2017. We really appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, talking some fantasy. And even though you sided with Dave on the Aaron Rodgers argument, I guarantee you I will be rooting harder for you guys this year than Dave will be. So thanks again for coming on. Best of luck. We'll talk to you guys again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Fred Beyer and Tom Winkler, ladies and gentlemen. Third place in the Footballguys Players Championship this past year. Second runners-up. And, honestly, if Mike Kuzma wouldn't have gone all cocaine crazy in Week 16, these guys would have taken second place, and a close second, by the way. So they almost really, came much closer to winning it than a lot of people thought.
No kidding. That's good.
And
great interviews. They were fun.
Great interview. A lot of good stuff there. I'm surprised at the Ladarius Green call. I mean, he's a guy that
could talk about him maybe being
released. Yeah.
Possibly.
But, I mean.
Although, two Packers should definitely take my trade offer in the big Blanken League that we're in.
What's that one?
I offered him Will Fuller, Ladarius Green, a third and a fourth for Corey Coleman.
Oh, God.
Corey, he likes Will Fuller. Corey Coleman's he's on the
Browns.
Browns.
He likes Corey Coleman, too.
He's on the Browns. He sucks.
I would not do that deal.
You don't do any trades.
No, I do plenty of trades, just not with you, because I always get taken advantage of.
My trades are fair.
I'll tell you what, we have an email about this. I don't want to get into it too much, but when I did that Latavius Murray, Carlos Hyde trade, I thought more people would want to deal with me. Because I got
that's
the short.
Well, these people don't even pay attention. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
So you should have floated me some offers.
Maybe I will.
Of course, you didn't need to because you won the league without the assistance of my
fortunate finish.
mess-uppery. Okay, we're going to get to a break here in a little bit, but before we get to it, we never really completed our jokes aside, we never really completed this Cobb-Adams discussion. For you, Adams is clearly ahead of Cobb.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you own Cobb in Dynasty, you are probably not looking to deal him, but you might be looking to acquire him right now.
No, I said I would actually, even at his depressed price, I would be looking to sell him. And it's because I think he sucks. And I don't think he's ever going to amount to much else. I mean, maybe he will, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that I think his career is not going to be very good going forward.
So are you very bullish on Devontae Adams then?
Yeah, I mean, he finished his WR number 9. I mean, I assume he's going to get drafted at a pretty high spot.
Right.
And that he doesn't have a large sample size either. So I don't know how that I'm spectacularly bullish on him. I would probably consider him in certain spots. I just don't think Cobb is really all that. I mean, I never really loved him. I mean, if you recall in plenty of other shows, I don't generally draft Cobb.
Yeah, you don't. That is true.
He's not a guy, and it's been year to year. I just don't draft him. He's a slot player. He relies so much on that. He's got a pudgy face, which I don't like pudgy.
Here we go.
Like a chiseled athlete, So he's not. Cobb's not my guy. Sorry, don't like him.
Dave Gerzak.
Don't like him. Never liked him. Kind of like a bad menu item. You just don't go for it.
Dave Gerzak, in the business of selling jeans and occasionally making good fantasy decisions.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's what you do. Hey, the one other thing we didn't get to, in the opening. The Fantasy Flash, sorry.
Yes.
Washington Post reports that the Los Angeles Rams, the Philadelphia Eagles, Chicago Bears, Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, all expected to have degrees of interest in free agent Pierre Garçon. Garçon quietly had a 1,000-yard year last year. He said he wants to remain in Washington, but with his performance last season, he could be something more than they could afford in 2017. He's going to be 31 at the start of the next season. He's played through injuries. I mean, he's got dinged up, but he hasn't missed time because of it. Been very consistent, does not drop passes. Could be reuniting with the baby-faced high school freshman Sean McVay in Los Angeles with the Rams. That's a possibility. Pierre Garçon, Dave, if you recall us talking last year in preseason. Okay, go ahead.
We were saying Pierre Garçon was effectively free. That is
totally was. Yes,
we were like, take him at 12, 13. No one's drafting him. No one cares.
Right.
Just take him as your WR, whatever you want, and just throw him in there during if you have guys on bye or if you have an injury. And that, I'm not trying to toot our own horn too much, but we did get that one pretty much right.
Yeah, and at the end, before the Blake Harrington dynasty waivers closed, I shouldn't even say this because I'm not 100% sure I did it, but I know I thought about doing it and I tried to do it.
He's on your team.
Okay, so I wanted to pick Pierre Garçon up late because I knew he was going to be a free agent, and I figured at the very least, and this is the great thing about Dynasty, maybe not Carrington because there's not a lot of trades that go down, but the great thing about getting Garçon there is because if he does, it's the same things we just talked about with Alshon Jeffrey at the top of the show. He could sign a big contract in a new place. Everybody's talking about him. Everybody gets so excited, and maybe I get a great deal for him. And you know what? If I don't, that's fine, because regardless of where he goes, I still think he's a top 35 guy at the worst next year.
35? Yeah, might be.
I mean,
right.
Plug him in as my wide receiver 3, and I get 5 for 70 and a touchdown. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Now
I just made you an offer in Carrington.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I should check my phone.
Check it out.
See what it is. I'll tell you what. We gotta get to a break, and I will check this offer as it loads. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak answering your emails, tweets, and more right after this on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Dynasty time in fantasy football. We're quietly shifting to that mode here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. And he just made me a trade offer in the Blake Harrington Dynasty League, which I'm about to look at right now. I wonder if it involves Pierre Garçon.
Nope.
So I get okay. So Dave has offered me the decrepit corpse of Des Bryant.
This is an offer you passed on last year. And how many? It was Des Bryant for Keenan Allen.
Yep.
Keenan Allen scored 12 fantasy points on the year.
Yep.
Des scored 182. Didn't have his best year ever.
Right.
He's awesome.
Where did he finish, by the way? Do you still have that up?
Keenan Allen?
Des Bryant. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So it's straight up Des Bryant. His Des Bryant for
I'd offered it
my Keenan Allen. Comments. Another shot at it.
You passed last
for
year.
You or me?
You made a mistake.
I'm going to take another crack at this to try to.
Trades never go down. I mean, I offered you a reasonable trade.
Yeah, Let me. The last time you made me this offer, I took 48 hours before I rejected it. I won't take that long this time, but I will think about it. Okay, let's get in. Let's move on and get to emails.
If you've got a question for Eric, Dave, or tonight's guest, send them a tweet at HSFF on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF on Twitter.
What's your problem?
I don't think we have enough time left in the show.
In Dynasty, you have the endowment effect.
Yeah, where I overrate my own
That's
guys
right.
or whatever.
And you would never sell the guys for what you would be willing to pay for them. Like there's no price. You rate them. They're worth more when you own them.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to buy them, they're worth less.
I don't feel that's the case, and I think I can go back to the Carlos Hyde, Latavius Murray trade that I made.
One trade, I agree with that one. It was pretty good.
And then you look at the Gurley trade I made actually with the same owner. That's another one too.
What was the trade? I'm sorry, we're talking too much about this. Okay, just keep
no,
going.
it's okay. Well, I mean, we talked enough about that Gurley trade when it actually went down.
I forgot.
I actually came out ahead, though, because, well, I don't want to get into it. But, okay, Kurt in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Now that Kyle Shanahan has, quote-unquote, officially been hired as the Niners coach, can we talk about how good Carlos Hyde can be this year? Look at Shanahan's previous coaching stops, and he's churned out stud running backs everywhere. Steve Slayton, Alfred Morris, Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman. How big of a bump does Hyde get? Thanks, guys. That's Kurt in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Kurt, thank you for listening. Thank you for sending the email. Kyle Shanahan, no stranger to churning out some pretty good seasons. It's Steve Slayton's one good season. He was the OC there. He had, Alfred Morris's big Boffo years where he had the 1,400, 1,500, 1,600 years. He was the offensive coordinator in Washington. Of course, we all know what he did with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman the past couple of years. Seems to all speak very well for Carlos Hyde's prospects this year, Dave. Are you bumping Hyde up in redraft?
I hate to say it,
based strictly on this.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually am. Offensive coordinators, the way they run their offenses, the way they use their backs is really crucially important. Hyde is actually, he showed potential. And it's too bad the team has been poor, because if he was on a decent team, he would be crushing it.
Well, what was so great for Carlos Hyde last year is, you had the mad genius Chip Kelly running that team, being down by 4 touchdowns, and he's still running the ball with Carlos Hyde. In the fourth quarter, there's no reason for Hyde to be out there.
There's no other talent on the team.
Right, and not only was he out there, but they were running the ball with Hyde. That was so great. Now, I don't know if Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to do that, or willing to do that, quite frankly. I don't think I'm bumping Hyde up much on this, maybe a real little bit, but not enough to even really to comment. The problem is, Carlos Hyde, I drafted him in Dynasty. And I essentially pretty much was, as soon as I drafted him, I was looking to trade him.
Yeah, you didn't like him at all.
Did not like him. I felt like I just fell into that spot, and I felt like I needed to take him there.
I was kind of a hater of Hyde. I will admit, I never really liked him, but I'm starting to like him now.
I never questioned his talent. I never really, was a worrier of, is this guy good enough? I think he is. The problem I had is when he was missing all that time. He'd leave games early. He would miss games. It was just so frustrating to own him. And I want this headache off of my team. And
I didn't like that he was on the Niners. They just don't score touchdowns.
And now you look at Kyle Shanahan coming aboard. Okay, well, that's great. But that doesn't make all of a sudden Carlos Hyde the pinnacle of health. You know what I mean? So for me, that it hasn't changed enough where I'm super excited about drafting Hyde. Now, I will say this, too. From a dynasty standpoint, I was talking with Ray Chung about the Kentucky dynasty draft that we did a couple of weeks ago. I was ready to take Hyde, and I can't remember what round it was. I'd have to have the draft board. And he got, in fact, it might have been Ray who took Carlos Hyde. I think it was Ray. I could be wrong.
Who cares?
Anyway, moving on. I was ready to take him in that just based on, okay, I'll put up with the injuries from a dynasty standpoint, and hopefully he can have another good season this year. It's not like I hate Hyde this year. It's just I'm not bumping him up strictly based on the Shanahan news.
Well, I am.
Well, there you go. Dan in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Just read Dane Brugler's fumble rates article, and it really throws cold water on Dalvin Cook.
Oh, good. Is there, you can give a brief analysis before the question, then, of what that article stated?
No.
So everyone in the audience knows?
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
The guy put it on the carpet every 64 touches at FSU, and we've all seen how crazy some NFL coaches can get when it comes to benching those with butterfingers. Does this make it easier to go with Fournette or a wideout instead of Cook with one of the first 2 dynasty picks? Dan in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. We haven't really talked about, I don't even know, do you view the top 4 dynasty picks right now as Cook, Fournette, Williams, and Davis in no particular order? I know Two-Packer doesn't.
Probably. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to see where these guys get drafted. Well, once the combine happens, I'll look at their numbers. That's really interesting. Watch some film. Get some of the stuff that Waldman's doing. Waldman does a great job. He watches so much film that I feel like I don't have to. Matt Waldman of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio.
MattWaldman.com, MattWaldmanRSP.com.
Yeah, exactly.
So great, he has 2 different websites.
What does he charge? $23 or $25?
I know that
he gives some of the money to domestic violence
right.
against women, so
it's
that's really nice. He's a good gentleman that way.
Can't confirm this. I heard this on the internet.
Yes.
MattWaldman.com, MattWaldmanRSP.com. Seems kind of weird for one guy to have 2 different websites.
We have to dog.
I'm not dog.
People just a tad to tweak them.
Yeah, I'm
sure they're not listening.
Doesn't matter. Here's what I've heard, and again, I can't confirm this. I've heard this.
He doesn't actually watch the film.
Apparently, the internet said that he writes so long they couldn't fit one rookie scouting portfolio on one domain name. He actually needed to buy a second domain name to put the rest of the rookie scouting portfolio on.
That sucker is long.
Now, again, can't confirm, but that's what I will say. Hey, speaking of this,
if you download the PDF and all of a sudden hit Control-P, your printer will break.
Yes.
Because it's like, especially if you do it at work, like a 1,000-page printer. Don't worry about it. Just come back in like 2 hours after your boss will be firing you.
Like there's this huge party at Kinko's every year when the RSP comes out. We're just like, all right, guys, time. It's our Christmas, baby. All these poor saps are printing out the RSP, just making mad cash. As long as we're talking about tweaking football, guys.
Go on.
I don't know if you listened to the Shrine Game and Senior Bowl recap podcast done by Cecil Lammy and Sigmund Bloom.
It's more likely that I watched the Days of Our Lives on daytime talks. No, I've not.
Okay, I've listened to both, and they were extremely well done. Very thorough. Great analysis.
I to watch the movie The Accountant, but go ahead.
No, I didn't. Well, I mean, again, I listen to podcasts while I'm doing something else. Very effective. Here's the problem I have with usually. Oh, Balky, you don't have time to watch all these movies. You and I watch movies in a very different way. You just sort of like have them on and you sort of osmotize what's coming out of your screen and speakers. I can't do that. I have to be an active watcher. I have to be like seeing everything. What's being shown, what's not being shown. What's the color? What's the lighting? What's
weird for me, though, is when I actually work, I actually just work. I don't listen to, like, podcasts and do all this other crap.
I have to keep doing it.
You know, if you look at studies, it shows it's more effective to just concentrate on working on one thing and just getting it done.
Cannot do that.
It'd probably be a lot more efficient.
It worked. Listen, we all know that we as humans are complex individuals. What works for someone may not work for someone else.
That's not what studies show.
They don't. Not everybody has the same cancer medicine.
Totally wrong.
Everybody has the same cancer medicine?
Yep, it's one medicine.
Did not know that. Take it all back. Did not realize that there is.
That's a different topic. Cancer medicine, you're equating cancer medicine with the effectiveness of focusing on one topic at a time.
Yes, I'm sure that, I don't want to get into it. I have no doubt that the lemmings and the sheep of people that they did this on, these mindless people that are all conformists, that have uniqueness.
You're so smart that you can.
It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with uniqueness. No, I can't. There's certain amounts of things I cannot do all at the same time. I happen to be able to do one or two things pretty well at the same time.
By the way,
one of those.
Dynasty League football.
Yeah.
Dez is WR10. Keenan Allen WR15.
Oh, so I should totally do that.
You should have, and you still should.
We'll see.
Go ahead.
Okay. So again, the podcast is extremely well done. If you want to play an interesting drinking game where you could die, every time Cecil Lammy says the kid from X university the X university kid, I'm not even. I mean, like, he wasn't even saying players' names at some point. Just like, Bloom, the kid from BYU, Bloom, the kid from South Dakota State. You know, it's just like
take a sip of black.
Oh my God! I'm like, wait, who is this now? Like, I had to like go back and like rewind like 15 seconds. Like, okay, who's he talking about? So anyway, it was great, very good stuff. But oh my God! Anyway. What are we on to? We're on a new question here.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
No.
You're the host.
The fumble. We were talking about the fumble rates. Are you worried about Dalvin Cook's fumble rate? No, it has nothing to do with.
It's not enough to really make that big of a change. I mean, if he gets drafted at a super high position and then Fournette gets drafted at a different lower position, I'm not going to be like, well, what about the fumble rate?
Well, that's the other thing is Fournette's fumble rate isn't great either. Yeah, it was like 1 out of 84 touches, something like that. So. Dear Flowers and Chocolates, you can't read any kind of draft content without people either hyping up Kareem Hunt or talking about the hype around Kareem Hunt. Given that he's projected to be a day 3 selection, is this much ado about nothing for dynasty owners? Love always. That's John in Del Rio, Texas. John, thank you for the email. We love you too. The question here with Kareem Hunt is an interesting one because I'm not terribly excited about drafting him, but we've seen guys, rookies just fall into the right situation at some point during their rookie seasons. Jordan Howard, perfect example. Not a guy that somebody was, super high on or wanted to make sure they got in dynasty rosters. And look, he ends up being the third or second leading rusher in the NFL, second leading rookie rusher, and they might be building that offense around Jordan Howard now in Chicago. So if you look at Kareem Hunt, he's not a guy that I'll get super excited about. I think he's closer to a third down back than he is a feature back. But you look at what he can do and the fact that he met with, I don't know what it was, 23 or 24 different NFL teams already. There's heat on him. So I think that he could be viable, but I'm not falling all over myself to draft him.
Yeah, I have little interest at all in him.
Little interest?
Like almost none.
Well, is it the size? Is it the small school that he went to? What is it?
I mean, I have no problem with the small school, but the fact that he's like, 5'10", 5'11", I've seen him at between 201 and 208. They're projecting a 40 time at 4.5. His speed score is going to suck. Unless he has a crazy good 3-cone drill, then it's possible. But otherwise, he's just an undersized back that's really not that fast.
Right.
225 and fast. Well, that's actually pretty good. 225 and really great agility. That's pretty good. 204.3 something speed, like Jamal Charles. That's something. 4.5 speed at 201, 210. It's nothing. It's not that good. And you have to have insane agility to do it. That's then you're pulling off a Shady McCoy trick, and that's so rare, but it does happen. But I mean, that's what he needs to do. So we'll see what with a player like this. I think you can just judge his combines and really see how he's going to be. That's my opinion. Yeah,
I mean, and honestly too, like you look at Kareem Hunt. Not only do you have NFL teams seemingly fallen in love with him.
Sorry, Draft Breakdown has him at 225. I mean, so what does this guy weigh?
I don't know. Maybe it fluctuates. Maybe. Wait, so that's a UW Eau Claire?
No, seriously.
He does not go to UW Eau Claire. That said UW Eau Claire on the previous page.
Toledo here.
No, on the page you just were UW Eau Claire. Why does it say that?
That's a retargeting ad.
Oh.
Do you know how the internet works?
Yeah, I can't see your computer perfectly from here. It looks like should take a screenshot of that and post it on our Facebook page and say, like, this is what Dave got all indignant with Balky on.
I guess I have to wait a little bit because, I mean, NFL Draft Scout has him at 208. Another site had him at 201, and Draft Breakdown has him at 225. I mean, this is like a UFC fighter before and after weigh-in. I mean, what the hell is going on?
What is his mean weight right now, Dave? Can we figure that out?
That was actually really funny.
Maybe
I'll give you that.
Once he gets to the combine, maybe he will regress to his mean weight.
I'm going to figure out his mean weight before this.
Well, you do that. Okay, so you're not excited about Kareem Hunt. I'm not falling all over myself.
Well, I guess I'm going to see what he weighs first.
By his mean weight? Are you literally...
I'd like to know. I mean, there's just...
I mean, what is it, like it's probably like 216, 217.
634 divided by 3. 211.33 using the 201, 208, 225.
All right, so still not exciting.
I'd like to actually see what this guy weighs.
Well, just tune in for the combine.
How big are his hands?
Yeah.
What's his long jump look like?
Dude, what's the pH balance of the hooker P that on him? I think that's another thing that we need to look at.
Another metric. Roto World has him at 215.
Roto World really likes him.
He's gaining weight.
In fact, read that last. Does that say something about how much they like him? That last blurb there.
There was their favorite senior runner entering the Senior Bowl and will be their favorite for the entire process.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's nice.
But also senior running back. I mean, what are we really talking about here?
Guys who weren't good enough to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. So there you go. Hi, Balky and Dave. The silly season of the NFL will be upon us before we know it, but rumors of certain teams liking certain rookies and free agents, and thus cooling on some of their own players, are already gaining steam. So when guys I own in Dynasty make the rumor mill, I'm always unsure how to capitalize on it. Any advice? Kevin in Brentwood, New York. Thank you for the email. I'll give you this piece of advice. 95% of rumors that you read never happen. The stuff that they're saying, this team's going to draft him, this team's going to sign him, that almost never happens. So if
Aaron Hernandez murdered someone.
I think that...
every once in a while it happens.
Yes, every once in a while it happens. I think that, not murders, but the thing that you need to understand is that things in motion generally stay in motion. Things at rest generally stay at rest. When it comes down to it, these guys usually, the rumors are just that. I mean, they're not anything. So I think if you want to find a way to capitalize on it, is when positive stuff's being floated out there about your guy, then you need to be floating your guy out there as well. When there's negative stuff about a certain player, you should probably be pitching some offers to him. So I think that's how I would recommend that you handle it. Dave, do you disagree with any of that?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. So you're
I'm on board.
Totally with me. Okay. So like when
the show's running long.
It's not running long. How is it running long?
It's fine.
Are you withdrawing that trade offer?
No, I'm rejecting Meyer's terrible Will Fuller for Des Bryant trade offer. That's such a clown.
Two Packer listening live right now, apparently.
Team name Fake News, which I love.
That is pretty good. Bruce in Springfield, Illinois. Tony Pauline wrote that he spoke to two people that thought Juju Smith-Schuster, or JJSS, could not only slip out of the first round, but the second round as well. Are you guys downgrading him in your dynasty ranks as well based on this? Bruce in Springfield, Illinois. Thank you. Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy we actually been talking about on this show for the past few months. And I love his
name. His name is so great.
And you know what, Dave? That might be the only part about him I like.
Got the juju.
Yeah, he does have the juju. This is a guy that, a lot of people thought he might come out after his season last year, and he came back to USC. When he was facing tough competition, he really got shut down. I don't want to get into the whole Alabama running back conversation, Wisconsin running back conversation, but I've made this case about USC receivers as well.
Oh, and it keeps on being correct. Marquise Lee. Robert Woods. Who else are we missing?
Well, Marquise Lee actually really came on last year.
He still sucks.
David Hubbard said he would draft Marquise Lee over Allen Hurns this coming season.
Big deal. It's still not that good. I mean, okay, fine. We'll see where Marquise Lee...
But, you're right with the USC receivers. Big Mike Williams. And we have another Mike Williams in this draft, too, which I know you're going to stay away from because we've already had too many Mike Williams for your taste.
Look, African-American parents, if your last name is Williams, don't name your kid Mike. All right? That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Give him a different, cooler name.
Mike Quell.
Whatever. I don't care what you name. Anything but Mike.
Micaiah.
It's too often. Too frequent.
Yeah.
Bryant Williams. That's interesting. Sinclair Williams.
Kidding aside, Juju Smith-Schuster, is he a guy that you'll be excited about drafting in Dynasty?
I don't think so. I mean, he's been compared to Treadwell a little bit on the slow tip. Exactly. I mean, we'll see how he runs. I mean, if he shows some speed, I mean, he's got the size, 6'2", 220, assuming that these numbers are correct. He's only 20 years old, which is great. Out of Long Beach, which I think that's cool, coming out right out of Long Beach, California.
Yep.
So, we'll see.
Where does his Lexus Flexus?
Long Beach to Texas.
There you
Texas, so the guy would be with Snoop Dogg.
All right, okay. So anyway, if he does drop out of the first and second round, this is just going to compound the fact that I'm not going to be excited about drafting this guy.
I'm not going to give a blanket statement. We'll see.
Oh, all I give is blanket statements, baby, including this answering this next email. Hello, Dave, Balky, Rob, and Bryce. We've heard about your running back and tight end choices, but what wideout are you picking first in redraft leagues? That's Pat in West Valley City, Utah. Appreciate the email, Pat. Dave, if we look at how the receivers ended up last year, you had Antonio Brown finishing ahead of Jordy Nelson, Mike Evans close behind. Those were sort of the three at the very top. I guess you can make a case that Odell Beckham's in that top tier as well. Then we sort of saw T.Y. Hilton in a tier by himself, followed by Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Doug Baldwin, your boy Devontae Adams, your other boy Brandon Cooks, Larry Fitzgerald, and Michael Crabtree, and then it goes on and on, sort of bunched up there. So, I mean, if you're looking at receiver next year, is Brown still the first guy you pick?
Yeah, assuming that there's no contract issues or whatever, that he's not sitting out. Yeah, and Antonio Brown, he gets so many targets, and he's consistent. I mean, he's going to get those 5 catches every week because he's not – Odell Beckham is great, but he kind of does sometimes, disappear a little bit if he's not getting those big, long bombs, and he'll have bad games every once in a while. And Antonio Brown has a super high floor and a super high ceiling. Sign me up for that any day of the week.
T.Y. Hilton is not in the conversation for you, right?
As the number one overall?
He finished as the number 5 last year.
No, he's not. But, I mean, he's actually a pretty underrated player. Because, I mean, even number 5, that surprises me that he was that high.
If we go week 1 to week 17, Antonio Brown actually only finished 0.6 points ahead of Jordy Nelson. Is Jordy Nelson a first-rounder for you next year?
Well, he could be.
I don't want to dial it back into our touchy Packers, debate here.
I don't want to talk about it.
Mike Evans or Odell Beckham, which one are you drafting first? Between those two.
I'd probably lean towards Evans.
I think I would, too. And my number 1, by the way, is still Antonio Brown.
Great.
All right.
We concur.
Solve the world's problems tonight, Dave.
We didn't solve any problems.
All the ones outside of Green Bay, that is. So that is going to do it for our show, obviously. Hey, by the way, shout out to Draft Sharks Fantasy Podcast, Dave. The FSWA winners, best fantasy football podcast this year. Good for those guys. Jared Smollett, Matt Schauf. By the way, both former co-hosts of this show. Now, next time we have them on, we actually have an award-winning podcast host.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
So congrats to them. That is awesome to hear. I want to thank Fred Beyer, Tom Winkler, Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, all of you for tuning in and listening tonight. Next week, we will have 2016 Playoff Challenge third and fifth place winner. Whoa, 2 guests, Balky? No, same guy. Chris Puhovich will be on the show next week. He took third place. He took fifth place in the playoff challenge. We're going to talk to him about how he did that as well, so that'll be a lot of fun. That is next Friday, 10, 9 Central. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody out there. Remember, treat your significant other well on Tuesday. She or he is the reason that we get to enjoy fantasy football so much. So make sure that you have a lovely evening with them. Pick up a Dynasty Orphan as well. Maybe co-own it with your significant other. Great Valentine's Day gift for them. I'm sure they'd love it. Scott Engel in the Fantasy Hall of Fame Hour is up next. If you are listening to the Fantasy Sports Radio Network, your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight.
I go have a couple of beers, and I'd say there's probably a 70% chance that you're going to own Keenan Allen at the end of the night.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, breaking news. That's why you stay tuned for all of it, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Wow.